And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's Dapr community call. My name is Cecil Phillip. I'm one of the community managers here for the Dapr project, and I'm joined with my co-hosts up here. This is Mark.
Hey, everyone. Nice to see you again.
So if this is your first time joining us for one of these community calls, welcome. We do these once a month, and we usually highlight a lot of different announcements and just talk about a lot of different things that are happening within the Dapr community. So today, we actually have a pretty interesting agenda for us. Mark and I are quickly going to talk a little bit about Dapr Day, because yes, Dapr Day is happening, and it is happening pretty soon. We're going to talk about that shortly. And then we're going to have a couple of guests that are going to be talking to us about some really fun and interesting topics. So Mark, why don't we just kind of dive into it really quick and just get into the Dapr Day stuff so we can kind of get the ball rolling?
Yeah, exactly. So let's actually switch my tab here, because the CFP, the golf papers, is opened for Dapr Day. Oh, I should of course not show this, but actually go to the show the event page, which of course I can't find at the moment.
Top right says CFS page. Is that what that is?
Maybe that's it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. Yes. So Dapr Day, as you can see, is happening on November 5th of this year. Just before KubeCon, so maybe you have like a couple of KubeCon sessions which did not go through at KubeCon, but yeah, maybe you can submit them here for Dapr Day. We have like a list of some categories you can submit under. So well, let's see, where are we? Oh yeah, categories here. As usual, case studies are valued a lot in every like CNCF project. So also for us, we would love to see a real life use of Dapr in production, but also API deep dives or anything mentioned about like workflows and job execution that Dapr offers, agentic AI. Now, of course, with Dapr agents, but also through Dapr's conversation API, running Dapr in production. Tips and guidelines for that, and also tips and tricks for doing local development with Dapr, and regardless of what your programming language or IDE or tool chain is.
Yeah, and so I think if you are a new person to the Dapr project, or you're using it in production, or you're a consultant working on it for another company, or maybe you're an open source person looking for a way to contribute, I think this is a great opportunity for you to submit a session, join the community, and kind of just share with everyone some of the cool things that you're doing with Dapr. So like Mark said, the CFP is open now. I believe it closes in a couple of weeks, doesn't it, Mark?
Yes, it closes on the 30th of September. So it's open exactly for like a month. So yeah, there's not that much time. Because we also need some time, of course, to review all of the submissions and plan the whole schedule. So yeah, you have like, well, less than 1 month need to go to submit your session. Yeah, and right. By the way, this is like an online event, right? So that's important. So it's not an in-person or a local event. It's like an online event. So yeah, and you can join from anywhere as long as you have like a decent internet connection.
Right, and then for people that don't know, I apologize for my camera. I have no idea what's going on. But for people that don't know, like Mark said, it is online, and so you can join from wherever you are. And so you don't have to worry about traveling or going anywhere. And everything will happen inside of the browser. So it's a great accessible experience for everyone. And then I think we put the sessions online afterwards too. So if folks are interested in seeing previous years' Dapr Day presentations, and they're interested in knowing what are the sessions like and what are some of the things that people talk about, we have that opportunity for you to go and check that out as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is the Dapr Day event page on our Dapr.io website. I'll actually also share that in the comments as well. And at the bottom of that, well, there's of course golf papers where you can, which links to Sessionize, and you can register for the event now as well, since just a few minutes ago. And then if you scroll a bit more down, then you can actually rewatch the session from last year, and that was when Dapr turned 5. Okay, yeah, I will share the links, and then I think we can continue.
All right, so coming up, so we're gonna have our first speaker. So Belgian's gonna come on. He's gonna be talking to us about what's new with Dapr agents. So Belgian, I'm gonna bring you on stage.
Yeah, I'm gonna remove my screen.
How you doing, my friend?
Hello, I'm good, thanks, and great to be here. I will provide some updates, what's been happening on Dapr agents, and if the demo goals are with us, I'll show a demo. That's the plan.
I like to sacrifice a little bit of code just before I come on, just in case, so that we don't have any demo god problems.
All right. Yeah, we see your screen now, Bilgen. Perfect.
Awesome. So I'll get going. Since Dapr Agent was announced, I think it was April time. There's been a lot of work going on, and here is a brief overview, some of those highlights, and I'll go through a few of those in more details. But roughly, we can put those into a few categories, right? There've been integrations of Dapr agents with other systems. For example, there is an MCP support, and that was added. There was integrations around observability with open telemetry and Arisophonics, improvements to conversation API, etc. So there are a bunch of integration that will go next. We've been also working on the core of Dapr agents, refactoring how you create Dapr agents and what they do. I'll go through a few examples of that. And also, there's been some effort to align Dapr agents more closely with Dapr. So we moved actually the documentation of Dapr agents into core Dapr, and that will be released together with 1.16. Going through some of these updates, I'll pick here a few that are my favorites. This definitely not the full list. The first one is the MCP integration. So when we launched Dapr agents, they had the tool calling support, so you could have a function to call other APIs or just functions. Shortly after that, there was MCP support added. What that means is basically now you can use Dapr agents to connect to MCP servers that are on top of other systems, and you can do that over locally or STDIO or server-side events. And more recently, Roberto contributed streamable HTTP. So we support all three ways of connecting to an MCP server. I have a small code snippet here, how that look like. Basically, you create an MCP client. Then there is, depending on the protocol you want to use, the different way to connect to that to the server with the client, and you call them and you get all the tools. Once you have all the tools, these tools appear as the regular agentic tools, and you pass them to your agent, same way you would pass any regular tool, right? It's quite straightforward. It's very little code. And we have quick starts demonstrating all three ways of connecting to MCP servers from Dapr agents. So this opens up the possibility to connect to hundreds of other systems on top of what Dapr can connect to. Another interesting feature that I think is really valued by companies that run this in enterprise environment is getting the LLM calls into Dapr agents. And what I mean by that is today, actually, if you are using an agent, you see it today at the top left, Dapr agent actually is using native clients to talk to LLM. So it's kind of bypassing the sidecar at the moment. It's using native clients. But with Dapr 1.16, we will be able to use the conversation API in Dapr 1.16 in Dapr agents. That means the agents, the call to an LLM will go through the sidecar, so you can benefit through all the Dapr features there. You can add resiliency policies, you get observability, scoping, etc. And also you get the other LLM clients that are available in Conversation API, like AWS Bedrock, Anthropic, DeepSeek, Mistral, OpenAI, and the Azure version of that was also added in 1.16. To enable this integration, the engineers had to add tool calling support in Conversation API because typically agents, when they talk to an LLM, they have to pass the list of tools back and forth. So that's almost like a mandatory requirement, right? So that was added in 1.16, which means pretty soon we will be able to use that in Dapr agents as well. In terms of how you use that, you see an example here when you're creating your agent, rather than picking a native client like an OpenAI, you would pick Dapr chat client, which means behind the scenes this uses conversation API. Yes, that's the second one. Another thing that was added is open telemetry and Zipkin support. This means that every time you use Dapr agents and the agents are calling tools or they're calling LLMs, you can now basically trace these calls. You can trace them using open telemetry like Jaeger or Zipkin. Both are supported. You see today, this kind of tracing requires writing a bit of code to set it up, but once you set it up, you can trace all of these calls. So that's not only the calls between the applications, between the agents, right? But this is what an agent is doing, what calls the agent is performing. And that's typically either an LLM call or tool call, through or without MCP. There's been also actually more advanced version of this observability feature that was added recently. And I'm hoping in the upcoming calls, Roberto can demo that into more detail. But this is basically support for tracing using Phonics Riser, which is another observability tool plus the backend. The difference, what you get on top of observability with Zipkin and Jaeger, is that in addition to traces, you can actually see the prompts going back and forth. All right, you see on the bottom left there is a screenshot from the Phonics UI that shows what was the input, what was the output. So it is it's observability specifically tuned for AI applications. Setting this up is actually requires very little code. You don't have to, it does automatic instrumentation of your agent. You just have to tell where is the backend. And in all of these cases, the agent, right, will push to the suitable protocol to the desired backend, the observability data. Going forward, these were the integrations in terms of the core part of Dapr agent. Initially, we had a number of different type of agents, maybe 5. I'm not sure, actor-based agent, tool calling agent, React agent, and it's led to a bit of confusion. When do we need which one? Right now, we reduce those to basically 2 types of agents. One that's called agent. You can think of it as a stateless, and the other one is durable agent. So if you look at the one on the left, the agent class, what it does is it's quite, Pythonic agent definition where you give it a name, role, prompt, and it runs as a library within your existing app. And it can use Dapr for LLM call after 1.16, right, to conversation API. That's not there. You can use from Dapr provided conversation memory and any kind of resiliency and other Dapr features for these interactions. So it's quite limited. Basically, you can use it for memory. But if you want, to use an agent that's really resilient to restarts and durable and long running, then you have to use durable agents. And actually, that's the preferred agent going forward. So we are trying to make durable agent capable of anything the agent can does and eventually maybe replace it. We'll see that. But if you look into durable agents, what it does, it basically does everything that the regular agent has. But in addition, it can run as a standalone process. So it can start a REST endpoint where you can prompt it, or it can also subscribe to a topic that you can also prompt it. In addition to the regular agent, it has a durable execution backed by Dapr workflow. So every time you send it a prompt, it will instantiate a workflow that will start running. It will start, consumers. It will register itself into a registry so that other agents can discover if you want to use that method of interaction. So in addition just to prompt-based, prompt response-based, chat-based prompting, you can basically interact with it over PubSub or over HTTP. These are the ways to interact with it. And I'll show an example of that. Okay, this is the last slide, and I think that's the kind of the mental model I have is using Dapr agent in the Python DSL. You define your agents with the right, prompt, with the set of tools needed to achieve that goal, and the idea is that the sidecar can now do all the abstractions on top of your, LLMs, the memory, the execution, and anything else that depends on external infrastructure. So obviously, we are adding all that into the Dapr agent. So next, I'm gonna show a demo. See how this goes. I created a repository with a couple of Dapr agent examples. Basically, if you go through this, I have a simple hello world. We won't go through all of that in this call. I'll just run maybe two. But I have an example of headless agent, chat-based agent, and even agent orchestration using a workflow. So if you want to try all of these are available in the repository. So I've mentioned durable agents and headless agent. Let me tell you what that is. So this is how we define a durable agent. You tell it, your prompt what it should do. List of tools. In this example, I have a single tool within the file. Here you will be able to provide basically conversation API pretty soon. So that will also go through Dapr. Your PubSub configuration, if you want to trigger it over PubSub, the workflow configuration where it should store, the memory, it's using Dapr key value store. That's the conversation history and the registry. And then I'm starting this on 8001. Actually, the way to run it, I use the standard Dapr multi-app run, right? You see the only thing it has is Python app.py, nothing else. Now I can do what? Dapr run this and run this locally, and it will start my agent, headless agent. The reason I'm saying headless is it doesn't have a chat interface. But we'll be triggering it over REST and PubSub. Now, if you run it locally, the thing is it runs, but you won't see what's going on within the agent. So another way to run is I'm going to show is using Digrid Catalyst. So this will basically help me run this example on the cloud. So the Digrid CLI is compatible with Dapr multi-app run. So if I do Digrid dev run and I give the file, it will tell me, are you sure you want to deploy this to cloud? Let's confirm. And this will provision the sidecar in the cloud and also all the backing components for the workflow, for PubSub, for the conversation memory, and it will start my agent locally on my machine. Once I have the agent, right, I run that, and all I have to do is now I can trigger it in a headless mode, so it runs as a workflow, right? On a separate terminal, I can tell it what, find me the flight to London, right? Now, while this is running, let's go to Catalyst and see what has happened there. My headless agent is here, it's running. And now in the workflow section, I can actually see there was a new workflow started. It's in running status, right? I can see the input to the workflow. I want to find flights to London, right? This workflow was created on the fly by Durable Agent. And I can see it running here and observe each of the activities. These are the activities, and you can see at some point there is generate response. This is actually the call to the LLM. You can see what was the input and what was the response from the LLM. Here, the LLM actually responded saying, call this function such flights with these parameters, right? I can see that, and the tool call happened, and let's see, append tool message. This was, I think, the response from the tool, right? And I think at this point, probably the workflow has already finished, and I can see what's the response. So this is an example how, to create a workflow on the fly using durable agent and trigger it over REST. Now let's use the PubSub to trigger this workflow. How do I do that? In the same agent, I don't have to change anything. I have a Dapr client that all it does is pushes a message to a topic. Actually, it will push 4 messages, right? It's trying to find flights separately to Paris, London, Tokyo, New York, right? So let me run that. So I have another Dapr multi-app run, which is with PubSub client. This time I'm deploying basically 2 sidecars into the Grid Cloud, and it finds all the existing components. So if I go to App IDs, actually how you see a bunch of sidecars running there, but now I also have PubSub client that is running and all the required backing infrastructure. If we go to the workflows, you see now actually I have 4 workflows that been started. These are the 4 messages that the agent picked up. And I can also explore, the at high level the application topology. The PubSub client sent a prompt using a PubSub to the durable headless agent, and that headless agent is using execution store to store the workflow state. Memory state is where is the chat history stored, and registry is where the agent is registered for discovery purpose. Right. This is the second way of triggering the agent. And if I show you the final way, which is like chat based. So if I go to durable agent chat, okay, this is the same durable agent. Now, the only difference is in this example, I've plugged this into Chainlit, into chat UI. So we can run that with the UI. So what's the file? I think this is the file. Let's run this. It starts the agent locally, and it should also start Chainlit UI, which should come back. Now, this is an example how you can start a workflow from a chat, which might or might not be what you're looking for, but I think it's a cool demo. Basically, it says it starts a new session, and this will be used for the conversation history, right? And I can maybe say, hey, and let's see if this picks up. This should talk to the durable agent, which behind the scene should start a workflow. So actually, this started. You see, that was the whole task, and it's running. And I don't think that's the purpose. LM says, "How can I help you?" Right? Let's say, find me flights for the top 5 capitals. Yeah, let's do that. And if I can go to my workflow view, I think this is the new one, which is reminding me my time is getting up. So I can see the input to the workflow, and it is telling me what the agent is doing, right? One of the upcoming things we will do is actually at the moment durable agent is creating, I would say, too many activities, is too granular. So most of these will be compacted into few one. Maybe at this point there should be this or one. Okay, it says which countries. Okay, getting clever. Pick top 5 and find flights. Please be kind. Let's see what it's going to decide. So demo with LLM. Okay. Now we can see actually the response from the LLM was perform these tool calls, and it picked the tool with 5 different capitals, and I can actually see here that all of these tools calls are becoming individual workflow activities, so they run all in parallel. And once they are done, my agent should return the response, right? So this kind of gives you a very good understanding what an agent is doing. In addition to an overview, you can drill down into each step, see the input and output, and to debug, right? I can check each tool call, what was the input, what was the output, what did the LLM did after I passed these responses, etc. And I think you can see here, I got those back. So yeah, that's the demo. Continuing from here, what's upcoming? We are working towards getting Dapr agents to stable release in the coming months, right? So we have to more work to do around durable agent and using workload to orchestrate agents, make the DSL, the way you configure those agents and parameters easier, improve the implementation and make it more resilient. Yeah, ideally, we want to add human in the loop support within an agent. So actually agents, when it's doing a tool call, it could wait for an external event, or you can use agents calling other agents as tools within the same process. Streaming support for LLM calls, and have a better automation and test anything that needs to happen before we get to GA. So the best way to start, I'd say, with Dapr agents is try the quick start or Dapr University. Dapr University gives you basically a runtime, an environment where you can run this quick start easily. All you need is your OpenAI API key, and you can run the quick starts in a managed controlled environment. Right, that's all I had.
Thank you very much, Bilgen. Yeah, this was quite a good overview and great demos as well to see it all moving. And with the visualization, also very nice to see that. Excellent. All right. I also shared a link to Dapr University, so if people are interested in it, definitely have a look at that, so you can get some hands-on experience with Dapr agents. Yeah, I think we should move on to Wit.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Belgium. And for folks, if this is the first time you're hearing about Dapr agents, we will be talking more about Dapr agents at Dapr Day. So please make sure you join us for Dapr Day happening in November. So I had to plug that in really quick.
Definitely.
Hi, Whit. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So why don't we go ahead and kick it off?
Okay, I'll jump in. So I guess I have no demos, but we've got a lot to cover, not a whole lot of time. So bear with me. I'm just going to kind of go rapid fire through each of these slides.
Sounds good.
I'm Whit Waldo. I'm the .NET and the JavaScript SDK maintainer. We're going to talk through what is new in the .NET SDK, bug fixes and changes that's kind of brought with us. Anything that is, I guess, considered a breaking change, and then just kind of looking ahead to what we're going to be building out next. So kind of the big things that we've added is kind of the shift in which .NET frameworks we're targeting. In 1.15, we were targeting .NET 6, 8, and 9, and Dapr Workflow targeted .NET 7. We're dropping 6 and 7 since those have been end-of-lifed. We will only be targeting .NET 8 and 9. As we get closer to November, we'll also support .NET 10, but that'll probably come as a minor patch release instead of waiting for the 1.17 release of Dapr. That gave us a nice little bump to use the C#12 syntax throughout, so that we got the performance improvement that language upgrade just came with. We've added a bunch of Roslyn analyzers and code fixes. So this is kind of a big thing with this release. I guess just kind of go through some of these. In NG Rusin, sorry, these GitHub usernames are tough. Contributed 3 of these, so 1301, 1302, and 1402, which validates that workflows and actors are registered properly at startup, that actors are registered properly, and that you've called the map actors handlers as required. And then also 1403, which suggests if you're using any kind of workflow interrupt, that you should use JSON serialization for it instead of the default. Siri Varma contributed 1501, which validates that every time you register a job, you also have a corresponding HTTP endpoint. And I added an analyzer that verifies that when you have an actor that has a timer, you're required to name the callback method that invokes the timer invokes. And so it'll check that actually verifies that's present. So big thanks to everyone that contributed each of these and just general ideas for them. Each of these packages, analyzers are installed via separate packages, Dapr.actors analyzers, Dapr.jobs, and Dapr.workflow analyzers. These are kind of separate so that if you don't want to use the analyzers, you don't have to. If you just want to use Dapr workflow without these warnings bugging you, no problem. There is documentation that will launch with 116 that details how to suppress certain diagnostics if you want to, and just generally has more information. But as you can see, several of these will also include a code fix. So if you're not doing it correctly, you'll get the prompt from Visual Studio to fix that. We're going through and modernizing a bunch of these SDKs. So trying to improve the developer experience as a whole and generally improve, support the latest runtime functionality. We kind of went through, we were looking at the agentic changes and how that's running on top of the new prototypes on the conversations building block. We have support for that. Do note that I've been feeling some serialization issues with it. So if you are actively using conversation, maybe don't switch to the latest RC just yet, but aiming to get those all released before stable. We also are supporting the new changes to job for overwrites and changing the failure policy. What happens if something goes wrong? And then cross-app workflow and activity invocation will be coming soon as well. The jobs documentation was overhauled to support the most recent implementation. The distributed lock package has been released with some slight tweaks to the SDK API itself to just kind of make it a little bit easier to use, a little bit more friendly. And that is just kind of continuing the work to migrate functionality out from Dapr Client. We'll come back to this later. Finally, most of the preview functionality was previously marked with obsolete attributes. We're switching to using experimental instead to better highlight that these things are upcoming versus those parts of the SDK that are truly obsolete. So again, I defer to the documentation on how to suppress any of those warnings. So a quick peek at how to use the updated conversations. This is very similar to what we had in 115, in that you'll simply specify, have whatever kind of a builder you're using, whether it's the generic host or the web application builder, add Dapr conversation client, and that's really all you need. This is currently how you would do a message request. It's a little bit heavy. We're looking at ways to kind of simplify this. And again, I'll talk about this a little bit more as we go through the slides. But largely you contribute a collection of inputs, which themselves compose of messages that are typed by roles and then include some kind of content. And then otherwise you just can name the component that you're using for the conversation and send that off. In response, you'll get the outputs and then the various choices that were made by the LLM, along with why it is that it stopped where it did, the content of the message, and then any information about the tools that it has sent back to the client that it needs to invoke in order to proceed with the conversation, if that finished reason was not a stop. Okay, so moving on, we've started adding more third-party framework support. Yaron contributed an implementation for Google's .NET 8a framework. You can find that in the dapr.ai.a2a package on NuGet. I added a concrete implementation of the Microsoft extensions.ai chat client. This kind of simplifies how you might work with conversations. We'll look at a little demo of that here in a moment. That also includes a sample project in the Dapr.net GitHub repo, demonstrating just how you use it, along with some matching documentation. Do note that streaming conversations are not yet supported. We need runtime support for that, so they'll be coming in a future release. Also, not all possible options from the extension abstractions are available. If there's not an analog for it in Dapr, we just ignore it. But since both the extensions and Dapr's conversation building block are targeting the OpenAI specification, I'm confident we'll achieve richer integration between the two over time. And we'll, of course, continue to iterate on these as the frameworks and the Dapr runtime evolve. And then finally, in Aspire, we've added more dedicated documentation detailing how you might integrate the two of them, and simple reference projects documenting that. But I'll, again, cover a little bit more on this as we're looking forward at future stuff. So similar to conversation, how would you register the extensions package? I guess my box is in slightly the wrong place here. But you have to register the Dapr conversation client as you would normally. It takes a dependency on that. And then you simply add the Dapr chat client, named because it's the iChat client in the extensions. Specify the conversation component name. It's going to inject that and map everything up. In order to use it, very similar to the other one, but a little bit shorter. You'll simply pass a chat message, specify the user role, and then whatever the message is that you're sending. And then you can just loop through the response. Again, if you try to use the streaming option, it's going to throw a not supported exception until we have that runtime support. It also supports tool-based conversations, again, similar to just the base implementation. You can specify some kind of a tool, you can register it with the function factory, and then simply pass those options. It occurs to me you can't see where I'm pointing my mouse. Specify the tool, register it in the factory, and then just pass those options into trying to get the response to it, and then again, just loop back through that response. Okay, so what bug fixes and changes have we seen? Cryptography now, while this was originally tested with small files spanning no more than a few megabytes, someone opened up a bug identifying problems with larger files. The implementation's been updated to support streams of really any size. It's chunking them into 4 megabyte blocks and then bidirectionally encrypting them and writing them back to the client. So very, very low resource overhead. I've tested as high as 32 gig. I'm sure others have tried more than that. I'm building out more rigorous integration tests to also validate other scenarios around this. So can't keep an eye on that. PubSub, CWASH 2189 provide a fix for attaching metadata to each of the messages when bulk publishing. That was previously supported only on the entire message to the component and not the individual messages. And then ELKEI24, sorry, I don't know how to say that, noticed that all the XML documentation was incorrect around bulk PubSub. So that has been fixed and is talking about the right stuff. So big thank you to both of y'all for contributing that. On the jobs SDK, we identified several fixes to improve the deserialization, especially around how the timers are communicated. On actors, kind of the same sort of thing. The reminders and timers are deserializing the time spans properly now. Internally, the shift to 115 scheduler allowed for a lot more diverse formats of how time spans were communicated, including the @ and then some kind of text to explain it. For these purposes, monthly will always resolve to 30 days. And there's some other kind of tweaks around that as well, but those will now deserialize to a time span properly. If you try to retrieve a reminder, because the Dapr.actors package does not have nullability annotations, that could be a little funky in trying to actually determine was there a reminder registered or not. So now that will consistently return null if it's not found, and provide the reminder information if it is found. And then finally, someone noted that timer invocations can return a Boolean value. If it returns true, it will cancel that ongoing schedule, and if it returns false or nothing at all, it will just kind of proceed. That now works as it should. So again, thank you to everyone for bringing each of these issues to my attention so that we can get them fixed. In terms of workflow, we officially forked the Microsoft Durable Task package to Dapr Durable Task, and that was a significant undertaking to do. We've made a lot of changes to how the package itself works. We identified a bunch of reliability concerns while testing this at scale. And so huge shout outs to Backtrack, 5R3, XON, and Ollie Tomlinson for their just really extensive help in identifying and testing each of these changes. Steady improvements continue to be made on this front, including the RC18 that was deployed this morning, continuing to address some of the issues being found. Date time offset, I guess, it's important to note, no one is expected to take a direct dependency directly on the Dapr.durable task packages. These will be indirectly installed by Dapr workflow. But it's important to know that they're there because they do diverge significantly from Microsoft Durable Task at this point. Frank Buckley contributed both the date time offset mechanism for scheduling a workflow start time, as well as a PR that simplified how you name each of these registered workflows and activities. And then Tomas Kelly contributed a fix for the logging exceptions, noting that if there was a significant concurrency, the hash map would fail. So thank you very much for identifying and fixing both of those. Breaking changes, not a whole lot. Again, we kind of talked about it. We dropped support for .NET 6 and .NET 7, but they've been end-of-lifed anyway by .NET. And then especially, I guess, with regards to the experimental attributes, I'd refer you to the 116 documentation on how to properly set up the no warn or the pragma statements themselves in your projects so that you can handle the various warnings that will come from use of experimental projects. Finally, looking ahead, we've got 5 things I just kind of want to cover here. First, the check health async and wait for sidecar methods on Dapr.client. Please stop using them. They are the root of a great many issues reported on Dapr. I've updated the documentation in 116 to provide a lot more information about them. But just generally, unless you have a very good reason, and I'll talk about it here in a second, unless you have a really good reason, stop using them in your application because they probably do not work like you think they do. Put simply, they should only be used when you're, they should only be used if you're using a building block that opens a channel outbound from the Dapr runtime to your application. So in other words, configuration or secret management. And then only to determine the readiness of that app channel. For example, you can't pull configuration from Dapr until that channel has been set up. It is not intended to be a general purpose readiness check against the sidecar. So if you're not actually using any of these blocks that open this app channel, these will never report as ready, and so your application will stall at startup. We're looking at adding an analyzer to address this in the next release, but I want to call it out here to give some background of the changes. We're looking at ways to shift this inside the SDK and simply hide these methods so that you can't even use them incorrectly. But again, there is that one kind of use case where you can use it for a good purpose. So we're trying to see where's the right way to balance that. But if you have any questions about your own use case, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to talk to you about it. Dapr Conversation will have streaming support at some point. It almost made it into the 116 release, but it didn't. When that comes out, we'll update the Dapr AI and the Dapr AI Microsoft Extensions packages to add that support. Let's see here. HTTP clients, we're looking at ways on just generally improving this to kind of correspond with some of the .NET best practices, use the iHTTP client factory. For a lot of these packages internally, they don't matter as much. We're not looking at a lot of opportunities for socket exhaustion, say in workflow, because it opens up one connection to the runtime and then essentially just exchanges all the information it needs over that one connection. It's not creating new HTTP clients with each of those invocations. That's also kind of why we're looking at the shift out to these discrete packages. Historically, the .NET SDK favored building a separate Dapr client and then doing whatever you need to, and then dispose of that when you're done. And apart from just the resource usage that comes with and the time it takes to spin that up, that also meant that you weren't utilizing anything from DI and letting your DI container handle the life cycles. So where there are definitely some opportunities in there to use the IHTTP client factory. And we're looking at that. We're looking at the ability to have more named clients, and then also provide your own options of how you want to configure that. If you want to, add an HTTP handler farther up in the in the operation in a way, in the registration in a way that you just can't today, but then also to perform more Dapr client type registrations. So kind of look at more how DI registration works for the HTTP client and kind of mirror that in a kind of an analog for Dapr. The Aspire integration. I'm working on a proof of concept to automatically generate all the Dapr YAML components based on how you've configured it inside of Aspire itself. There is no ETA on this. It continues to be kind of a work in progress, but it's definitely a recurring ask. Something I'm experimenting with. We made a recent leap forward following a significant undertaking to improve the metadata generation by Samantha in 3953 in the Dapr components contrib. So huge thanks to her for tackling that and just kind of really improving that metadata that we're using to generate these bindings. But we're looking at a source generator based way of generating these things on the fly. And then finally, continuing to refactor out of Dapr clients. So kind of touched on this briefly earlier, but why are we doing this? To improve startup time and resource consumption. There's if you're not using all the features of PubSub, there's no reason you should bear the weight of that in your deployed application. So just kind of slim down package size. We're trying to provide more modern best practices from the start in a way that was not part of the original how the .NET SDK itself was built, including nullability annotations, first-class support for I configuration and I options, favoring DI-based life cycles for resource management, and then just allowing a lot more purpose-targeted documentation instead of one page that just kind of talks about everything possible across all these different building blocks in Dapr. We can now have discrete pages for each of these separate packages and just kind of really focus on where they shine compared to the others. Dapr client isn't going anywhere for at least several releases because we need to have that parity with these discrete packages. And here's a list of just a few of the ones that have yet to be developed. But it's also not receiving any of the new Dapr functionality. So it receives bug fixes, but streaming PubSub was introduced in 1.15. It's only available via Dapr messaging and will not be mapped back to the Dapr client. So it will increasingly be rendered obsolete. I highly encourage everyone to use these discrete packages where you can. If there's anything else you really want to see in the SDK, please don't hesitate to file a feature request in GitHub. And if it's a feature you want to see in Dapr itself, please file that feature request in the Dapr repo. Links here on the slide. Just wanted to finish with a huge thank you to everyone using the .NET SDK. Thanks for calling out issues in Discord, filing tickets in GitHub, testing these release candidates, and contributing pull requests. Maintaining and adding new functionality to this project takes a lot of time, and your help in doing so is invaluable. So, really looking forward to seeing how we can continue to improve the developer experience in 1.17. My contact information is on the first slide. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or if I can provide you with a nudge in the right direction. And then I'll make these slides available to the community managers. They can post it wherever they need to. Thanks for your time today.
You started off saying you didn't have any demos, and I'm actually glad you didn't have any demos. I say that because there's so much rich information that you shared with us. So I definitely appreciate all the updates. There seems like there's so much going on.
Wow.
I know I have a bunch of questions, but we're running low on time. So me and the same thing I'm going to recommend that everyone else do is to go over to Discord and ask with all the questions you have about all the stuff that you saw and talked about, and share your feedback with them over in our Discord channel.
I did have to skip a few things, so also look at the release notes. So we've got more information there, as well as links back to the issues and the PRs that were open for each of them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And also thank you for actually naming everyone who like raised issues and contributed.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, the contributors are a really big part of how we can kind of move this along. So I think it's important to, give a shout out to each of those people to, big thanks for, your invaluable contribution to this project.
Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
See you later, Whit. Bye.
Take care.
Take care.
Wow, so much good stuff. Wow. Okay. Let's continue with the final section. That's the community show and tell part. So all the community managers contributed in some of the content that I'll be sharing now. So there are still some upcoming events where there will be sessions about Dapr. So the first will be at Container Days in Hamburg. Where we have like 2 speakers talking about breaking barriers with Dapr, simplified and portable cloud-native architectures. It's really nice, let's say mid-sized conference, cloud-native conference. I definitely recommend if you're in the area to go there. Then I'll be speaking about PubSub, Dapr PubSub in Copenhagen at NDC Copenhagen, also later this month. Then still at the end of this month, I'll be doing a workshop with Dana, the other community manager at PyData Amsterdam. So we're going to do a Dapr Agents workshop there. And then next month in October, I'll be in Belgrade speaking at HeapCon. This will be like a Dapr introduction session. And by the way, if you are speaking about Dapr at some event, or you know someone else who is speaking about Dapr, please drop me a note in Discord so I can feature everyone in this section next time.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of Dapr talks, Mark. We got to get you.
Yeah,
You got to get an extra special presenter badge.
Yeah, which I have to create myself maybe, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. So looking at blog posts, there's a lot of things written over the last 2 weeks about Dapr. So -0 created like an integration, how to integrate Dapr in their hotel solution. Very nice blog post there. There's a beginner's guide to Dapr with Spring Boot and integrated in Azure by I think Jonas Engel. So great guide. And also I think there's a lot of traction also in seeing in the Spring Boot area with Dapr. So that's great to see. Then Hassan Mansour wrote about how to combine, that's interesting, how to combine Dapr and Dapr, the DAPPR and Postgres for writing microservices. I think this is the first article to ever combine both of these, both Daprs. So that's a nice one. Kai Walter wrote about Dapr agentic workflows, so the Dapr agents on dev.to, so definitely take a look at that. 2 articles about Drazi. So it's how to do like CQRS based applications based on Dapr. So there it's another open source project called Drazi. We had Aman, I think at the previous community call where I actually did a demo, but there's also quite some content created around this now. So if you want to do like more event-driven things, definitely have a look at Drazi. Then Nathan Eddy wrote why Dapr is the productivity boost every cloud-native team needs, a bit of more high-level mentioning all the benefits about Dapr. Then Bilgen, who was just wrote a blog post about the outbox pattern, so how Dapr outbox eliminates dual writes in distributed applications. So yeah, also very, very important and a very tricky thing to do manually, actually. And finally, there's a case study from Avelo Airlines, how they are using Dapr to future-proof their application infrastructure. So yeah, a lot of things to read, good stuff. And next to that, there are also some videos that mention Dapr or like podcasts. So we have actually 2 where Mauricio Celestino is talking about Dapr. So those are probably Java based. There is a Kubernetes isn't enough. I think that is a podcast where Mark Vossel was talking about Dapr and Digrid. And finally, we have Jeroen, who was doing like a talk and also a demo about the Dapr agents at Open at Microsoft. The social part, well, a lot of mentions about Dapr, but also about Drazi, so I also highlighted those. What's actually good to know, I didn't mention it before, but there was like a small new feature on the Dapr documentation site now, where you can actually ask your questions at an AI bot there. So there's this small button here. If you click it, ask your question to this AI bot, and it actually uses the Dapr documentation and all of the Dapr open source resources to create the answers. So it should not be like hallucinating up all kinds of fake data, but it's actually based on real Dapr docs, Dapr website, and GitHub data. So please give it a try. So we're just like in the evaluation phase to see if this is helpful.
That's awesome, and I honestly didn't recognize that we had that on the docs. Definitely got to try that out.
Yeah, it's very recent. Yeah. So it's on the main doc since yesterday and in the 1.16, maybe for a week. But yeah, people should just try it out and let us know what you think. Yeah.
You know what I'm crossing my fingers for, and this is my gentle nudge to all our friends. I'd love to see. You see how a lot of these folks are creating these docs MCP servers, so they can get like up to date documentation in their agents. Like that'd be fantastic if at some point that we could get something like that.
I agree. Yeah, I think I heard Jeroen talking about it, but I'm not sure actually how that went.
Well, don't get the secret out. If you know something, you gotta stay quiet for a little while.
Yeah, I've heard something, but it's a while ago, so I don't know. Yeah, I'll come back to this. All right. So finally, please be part of our Dapr community, right? So we're doing these community calls, but there's way more ways to be involved in the community. There's a very big Dapr Discord with hundreds of people who can help you out. But also, if you're using Dapr, we'd love to hear it. I frequently do like interviews with Dapr end users, so you can have like a spot on our YouTube channel. We're also writing case studies for CNCF. So again, if you're using Dapr, I'd love to hear it. If you want to do like presentations about Dapr, we have I think 3 dedicated Dapr slide decks now. One for like a general introduction to Dapr, which has like 150 slides. One slide deck which is purely about Dapr workflow, and one who is about Dapr agents. So there's also a lot of material that you can use if you are giving presentations about Dapr. Finally, you can also collect all kinds of Dapr badges if you contribute to the docs or to the website or to any of our GitHub repos, but also if you are presenting about Dapr or if you're writing blog posts about Dapr. So definitely have a look at dapr.io/community. So yeah, thank you for sticking around for this community call. Yeah, we had lots of stuff to share, great updates about Dapr agents and the .NET SDK. So feel free, if you're not claimed this Dapr community supporter badge yet, feel free to do it right now. And I'd love to see you, definitely at the next time, but definitely also at Dapr Day. So don't forget to call for papers if you want to submit something. Now is the time.
Definitely. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. So remember, we do these community calls once a month. So this is our one for September. Definitely looking forward to seeing you all next month. If any of you have any thoughts or ideas about things that you'd like to see, or maybe one of you all might want to speak yourselves and have something that you want to present, definitely let us know. Like Mark said, and like a lot of us have been saying, definitely join us on the Discord channel, or feel free to message Dapr on social media. There's a Blue Sky and Twitter and LinkedIn and all the social things that you could reach out to the team. So definitely let us know what you think, and if you want to join us, definitely we'll welcome you to do so.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Until next time.
Bye, folks.